Look, Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White clearly like and respect one another, right? That there's a bit of a divide between the way that they see the game.
After two humiliating losses that had everyone asking if this team was falling apart, the Indiana Fever walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse with one last chance to prove they could survive the chaos.
You can just hear what they have to say and connect the dots a little bit. Not to mention, it didn't go well.
Caitlin Clark had just returned from injury. Rumors of heated arguments with Coach Stephanie White were swirling, and the shadow of Brittney Griner's ugly trash talk still hung in the air.
And Brittney Griner has not commented, which I find significant. I've watched that video count.
What happened next wasn't just unexpected. It was the kind of shocking, season-defining moment that nobody saw coming. Just days before this game, the Fever were unraveling. Back-to-back losses to the LA Sparks and Golden State Valkyries weren't just defeats, they were warnings.
But we have heard nothing from the WNBA, absolutely nothing.
Caitlin Clark's groin injury had thrown the team into disarray, and with veteran DeWanna Bonner missing games for national team duty, rotations stopped making sense. Players who had found their rhythm suddenly looked lost. Fans began asking tough questions. Was this team fractured beyond repair?
But it's really loud tonight. Clark, the hesitation, draws the foul!
Inside the locker room, frustration boiled over. Reporters described it as a team searching for an identity. But the truth was harsher. Depending on whether Clark was on the floor or not, the Fever played like two completely different teams. But that was just the beginning. The core of the Fever's struggles wasn't just injuries or bad luck. It was a full-blown identity crisis.
I really do think this is a really unique and special team. In the locker room, we really do love each other.
Reports claimed that Coach Stephanie White wanted a deliberate, slow-paced style built around grinding out possessions and controlling tempo. Caitlin Clark? She had other ideas. Clark was pushing hard for a fast, free-flowing offense that showcased her passing wizardry and kept defenses on their heels. This wasn't some minor disagreement. It was a philosophical clash that divided the team.
Our team kind of got in a groove, honestly, when Kate got hurt.
Players looked unsure of their roles. When Clark was on the court, they tried to run. When she sat, the pace crawled to a halt. That confusion bled into every possession, and the frustration became impossible to ignore.
I think that everyone saw that we kind of got some flow when Kate was hurt and our offense was clicking. But now we have to have a new offense when she's in there because she just brings that much to the game. And so we have to adjust. And I think all of us just want it now. We know what the potential of this team can be.
Practices reportedly became tense, with sources suggesting heated strategy debates that left teammates caught in the middle. And things only got worse as Clark's shooting slump deepened. As if the identity crisis wasn't enough, Caitlin Clark hit the coldest stretch of her young pro career. Over 5 games, she shot just 28.9% from the field and a shocking 11.4% from deep.
Now here is Clark. Eyes ahead. Lob inside. Finds Boston right on the money.
Every miss fueled speculation. Fans wondered aloud, was she forcing shots, pressing too hard, or simply out of sync? Behind the scenes, rumors swirled about rising tensions. Reports suggested that disagreements between Clark and White weren't confined to practice. They were spilling into games. Whispers from inside the organization hinted that Clark wasn't just questioning offensive sets, but calling out teammates for failing to move the ball. The pressure was building with every brick, every turnover.
They're a great team, the Valkyries, but it's not to our standard. And so we're running out of time, to be honest. And I think that it's going to light a fire under our butts. And so hopefully you'll see kind of that energy shift.
And as they walked into that matchup against the Atlanta Dream, something had to give. But nobody expected what would happen at halftime. The first half against Atlanta looked like more of the same. The Fever were out of sync, their offense stagnant, and frustration written all over Clark's face. But behind closed doors, things exploded. Sources close to the team revealed that halftime wasn't a quiet regroup, it was a confrontation.
Woohoo! That's a fun dunk! That's how you bounce back, baby. Consistency!
Reports claim Clark didn't hold back, openly questioning Coach Stephanie White's decisions and demanding changes. The most shocking rumor? That Clark directly told White to sit Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Howard because they don't pass. Witnesses at the game said voices from the locker room could be heard echoing down the hallway. This wasn't a polite back and forth. It was a fiery debate about who should be on the floor and how this team needed to play. Even so, this wasn't dysfunction, it was desperation. And what followed in the second half would completely flip the narrative.
When she is playing with us, we play a different style of basketball, and it's almost like two different teams, right? When she's with us, you play a different style. When she's hurt, which hopefully she's done being hurt.
Because the Fever weren't just playing for a win. They were about to send a message. This game wasn't just about basketball. It was personal. Everyone in the Fever locker room remembered the last matchup with Atlanta, when Brittney Griner crossed the line with what appeared to be disgusting trash talk aimed squarely at Caitlin Clark. Reports claim Griner called Clark a trash white girl after a hard foul, an incident that sparked outrage, but drew no public response from the league. That memory was fresh as the Fever took the court after halftime. This wasn't just a chance to win. It was an opportunity for payback. The energy shift was immediate. You could feel it in every possession. The Fever attacked every loose ball, fought for every rebound, and played with a level of intensity that screamed, "You don't mess with one of ours and get away with it." But this surge wasn't just emotional, it was surgical. And what happened next would completely shock Atlanta. When the Fever came out of that locker room, they looked like a completely different team. The disjointed offense was gone, replaced by fluid ball movement and relentless pace. Kelsey Mitchell, one of the players Clark reportedly criticized, erupted for 25 points, torching Atlanta from everywhere on the court. Aliyah Boston transformed into the team's quiet anchor, dropping 19 points and dishing out an eye-popping 8 assists, turning the Fever offense into a passing clinic that Atlanta simply couldn't stop. Even though Clark's shots still weren't falling, she finished with 12 points on a tough shooting night. Her fingerprints were all over the game. She racked up 9 assists, constantly finding open teammates, pushing the tempo, and dictating the flow. Clark didn't just score, she led. The Fever piled up 27 assists on 35 made baskets, a jaw-dropping 77% assist rate, showing exactly what happens when a fractured team suddenly locks in and plays as one. And their defense? Ferocious. They outscored Atlanta 59-37 in the second half, shutting down Jordan Canada after she had dropped 26 points in the first. But this wasn't just a win. It was a total statement. By the time the fourth quarter arrived, the game felt inevitable. The Fever didn't just take control, they imposed their will. Every possession was a masterclass in adjustments, smarter rotations, faster closeouts, and suffocating pressure on the ball. They completely flipped the script on Jordan Canada, who had torched them for 26 points in the first half, but was almost invisible down the stretch. The Fever's defensive intensity finally matched their offensive flow, and you could see the confidence return to every player on the floor. Sophie Cunningham embodied that spirit, diving for loose balls, battling for rebounds, and showing the kind of fire that sends a message to both teammates and opponents. We're done falling apart. From now on, we fight together. This wasn't just a bounce back, it was a transformation. The crowd felt it. The players felt it. The chemistry that had been missing for weeks suddenly clicked at exactly the right time. But while this one was impressive, it raised an even bigger question. Here's the reality check that most fans overlooked. This was only the Fever's second game all season with a fully healthy roster. Think about that. Despite all the turmoil, injuries, and swirling rumors, they hadn't even had time to build true chemistry or establish consistent rotations. And yet, they dismantled one of the better teams in the league with a 99-82 statement win. The 27 assists on 35 made shots wasn't just a stat, it was a sign. This team isn't just built on individual talent. It thrives when players trust each other and play together. Even more impressive, they did it under intense pressure, with media noise about locker room divisions, speculation about Clark's relationship with Coach White, and the shadow of Griner's trash talk still hanging over the court. But that's what makes this performance so important. It showed the Fever aren't just talented, they're resilient. And with more time, more practice, and more trust, this could be the moment they turn potential into something truly dangerous. And all of this leads to one final takeaway. What happened at halftime wasn't just about Caitlin Clark's fiery leadership. It also exposed the growth of Coach Stephanie White. She could have dug in her heels, refused to bend, and stuck to her deliberate, grinded-out game plan. But instead, White showed a rare trait in elite coaches: flexibility under fire. According to insiders, she listened carefully to Clark's critiques, weighed her points on the fly, and made targeted adjustments that unlocked the Fever's offense. White didn't just hand over the offense, she recalibrated. She let Clark push tempo while doubling down on defensive principles, tightening rotations, and demanding effort on the glass. This moment will define White's season and maybe even her coaching career. Because championship coaches don't just have one vision. They evolve in real time, balancing control and trust. By the time the second half began, White had taken a fractured situation and turned it into a collaborative, winning formula. When the final buzzer sounded, Gainbridge Fieldhouse felt electric. Fans who had been doubting this team just days earlier were now on their feet, roaring. Social media went crazy. Clips of Clark's assists and Mitchell's dagger threes flooded TikTok and Twitter within minutes. But it wasn't just noise. The crowd's reaction mirrored something even more powerful inside the locker room. Players weren't just celebrating a win. They were celebrating a breakthrough. There was laughter, hugs, and a visible sense of relief. Veterans who'd seen locker rooms fall apart before spoke about how this felt different. As Sophie Cunningham put it post-game, "We're our best when we're having fun, and tonight, we remembered that." That locker room love wasn't just feel-good chemistry. It was proof that adversity had forged trust. A team that had looked divided just days ago now looked united. With one emphatic win, everything changes. Expectations shoot up. Headlines praise a turning point. And casual fans suddenly expect nightly dominance. But the Fever know better. Momentum is fragile. Now the real test begins. Can they channel this emotional, high-energy win into consistency? Upcoming road games will challenge them in different ways. Hostile environments, travel fatigue, and scouting reports that expose weaknesses. It's no longer about proving they can win a statement game. It's about proving they can show up every night with the same focus, defensive effort, and ball movement they unlocked in the second half versus Atlanta. This is where championship teams separate themselves. They don't let big wins go to their heads. They lock in. As Coach White reportedly told the team after the game, "Enjoy this one, but tomorrow, we work like we're 0-0 again." And that work matters, because playoff seeding is now in play. With this win, the Fever climbed back into the playoff picture, and they look dangerous. But here's the next big question. How do they stack up against the WNBA's elite? Against teams like the Aces, Liberty, and Storm, the Fever's pace and space style will be tested. Those veteran squads thrive at forcing turnovers and choking off passing lanes. If Clark's chemistry with Mitchell and Boston holds, Indiana could shock those teams, but they'll have to prove it over multiple matchups. There's another factor at play too. This was only the Fever's second game at full health all season. They're still learning each other's tendencies, still fine-tuning rotations. If this version of the Fever gets 2 months of chemistry-building reps, their ceiling is even higher than this game suggests. Playoff success isn't just about talent. It's about peaking at the right time. And this Fever squad may have found their spark exactly when it matters most. While Clark's star power drives headlines, it's the Fever's veterans who keep the ship steady. Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Kelsey Mitchell all played critical roles in stabilizing this roster amid turmoil. After the ugly losses to the Sparks and Valkyries, it was Howard's voice in practice emphasizing fundamentals and defensive communication. Cunningham's hustle plays in the Atlanta game weren't just about stats. They were emotional tone setters. And Mitchell's offensive explosion was proof she took criticism and used it as fuel, not friction. These veteran voices matter in more ways than one. When things inevitably get rocky again, as they will during a long season, it'll be Howard and Cunningham who remind this team what it takes to win under pressure. Their experience is the backbone that allows Clark and Boston's talent to shine. This mix of youthful energy and veteran wisdom could be exactly what transforms Indiana from an erratic young team into a legitimate championship threat. This win over Atlanta was a statement, but it wasn't perfect. For the Fever to truly join the league's elite, they'll need to address several key issues. First, early game defense remains a problem. Atlanta carved them up in the first half, with dribble penetration leading to open threes and easy layups. Consistency at the point of attack has to improve, or better teams will punish them quickly. Second, offensive rhythm can't depend entirely on emotional surges. The beautiful ball movement we saw in the second half has to become the norm, not something that appears after heated halftime debates. Third, Clark's shooting slump lingers. She's still the team's engine even when she struggles, but Indiana's ceiling rises dramatically when she shoots efficiently. Unlocking her scoring without sacrificing team flow is a puzzle they need to solve fast. Finally, bench production remains spotty. When rotations shorten late in the season and in the playoffs, reliable minutes from role players will matter. The good news? They have time, and they've already shown the resilience and self-awareness to adapt quickly. Between games, something profound changed on the practice floor. After their humiliating back-to-back losses, practices weren't just routine. They became critical laboratories for re-engineering the team's identity. Insiders noted that drills were crisper, scrimmages were faster, and every session ran longer than scheduled. Coaches emphasized fundamentals again, returning to basics like crisp bounce passes, communication on switches, and defensive positioning. Even film sessions evolved. Players sat together breaking down every rotation breakdown and missed assignment. But this time, they asked questions, challenged assumptions, and held each other accountable in a way that hadn't been seen all season. Reports suggest that Caitlin Clark took a visible leadership role even in these sessions, pointing out openings, diagramming plays on the fly, and encouraging teammates when fatigue set in. This wasn't just about learning plays. It was about rebuilding trust. The result? By the time they stepped on the court against Atlanta, the Fever had already begun winning the game in practice. The discipline they displayed didn't happen by accident. It was forged under the fluorescent lights of the practice gym, where cohesion replaced confusion. What set this game apart was how fluid the Fever became in real time. The halftime debate between Clark and White wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a chess match that played out possession by possession. Early in the third quarter, White surprised Atlanta by mixing in defensive looks they hadn't prepared for. Zone traps on Clark's primary defender, sudden switches on ball screens, and help side rotations that protected the rim without fouling. These weren't random tweaks. They were responses to what Atlanta did in the first half. Offensively, Clark and Mitchell seemed to develop a silent language. Quick nods before backdoor cuts, disguised screens that confused defenders, and improvised fast breaks when Atlanta defenders hesitated for just a split second. Boston, too, found herself facilitating at the high post, drawing defenders before firing laser passes to cutters. Every time Atlanta adjusted, Indiana countered, not later, not after a timeout, but instantly. That ability to flex and adapt turned what could have been another second-half collapse into a masterclass of mid-game control. The Fever's chemistry isn't just a cliché. It's something tangible that players talk about openly. Off the court, this roster genuinely spends time together in a way that feels rare even in professional sports. Sources say they have weekly dinners, team outings, and even small group recovery sessions where veterans mentor rookies on everything from footwork to financial management. Social media regularly shows them laughing together on buses, sharing playlists, and playfully teasing each other during downtime. This bond means that on the court, mistakes don't snowball into resentment. They get shrugged off, corrected, and moved past. When Clark misses a three, Boston is the first to pat her on the back. When Cunningham takes a charge, Mitchell is there shouting her name. That deep connection was on full display in the Atlanta game. When Clark was struggling to score, no one froze her out or got frustrated. They moved the ball even more, trusting her to lead even without a hot hand. This isn't just team spirit. It's the difference between a group of talented individuals and a real team. The grind of a WNBA season is unforgiving. Tight travel schedules, back-to-back games, and relentless physical play. But this Fever team is attacking recovery as seriously as they attack opponents. Clark herself reportedly led the team into new mental prep routines, including visualization exercises, breathing techniques, and post-practice meditation sessions aimed at calming nerves and sharpening focus. Meanwhile, veterans like Natasha Howard and Sophie Cunningham leaned into recovery tools, cold tubs, massages, compression therapy, and sleep tracking to ensure their bodies could withstand the workload. This dual focus on physical and mental wellness has kept them resilient, even when fatigue was setting in late in games. And it's showing up statistically. Fewer turnovers, better late-game shooting percentages, and more energy to close out defensive rotations. That edge may look invisible to fans watching from the stands, but it's a key reason this team suddenly seems faster, fresher, and more focused than their opponents. The Fever haven't just faced tough matchups. They faced a relentless media glare. After rumors about heated disputes and locker room tension leaked, headlines ranged from crisis in Indiana to Clark versus coach. The storylines could have divided them further, but the Fever flipped the narrative. Post-game interviews became opportunities for unity. Clark praised her teammates and coaching staff at every turn, downplaying the rift while still acknowledging that tough conversations happened. White did the same, calling Clark a competitor and saying she welcomes feedback from any player who wants to win. This approach defused what could have spiraled into a distraction and won them respect from analysts and fans alike. Transparency became their shield, and it worked. Fans on social media started posting about the Fever's realness and authenticity, while critics began writing about how the adversity had forged a better team. That's not just PR, that's control. They didn't let the media write their story. They took the pen back. When you dive into the numbers behind Indiana's resurgence, the data tells an even more compelling story than the highlight reels. Before the Atlanta game, the Fever's assist-to-turnover ratio ranked near the bottom of the league, an indicator of poor ball movement and sloppy execution. In the Atlanta win, a stunning 2.7 to 1 assist-to-turnover mark, driven by unselfish play and sharp decisions. Even more impressive, their defensive rating improved by 12 points compared to their 5-game average, a swing that would rank them top 3 league-wide. But it's not just traditional stats. Advanced metrics show an uptick in potential assists and screen assists, subtle measures that reveal how much more active and efficient this team became in moving off the ball. This isn't a lucky win, it's measurable improvement. The Fever didn't just get emotional, they got efficient. This victory wasn't just about beating Atlanta. It was about proving that the Indiana Fever can survive chaos, confront their internal struggles head-on, and emerge stronger. That heated halftime argument? It wasn't dysfunction, it was accountability. It was leadership in its rawest form, uncomfortable, necessary, and ultimately transformative. In the second half, this team didn't just play better, they played as one. The ball movement, the defensive energy, the joy you saw on their faces, it all pointed to one thing. The Fever finally found their identity. And here's the kicker, this is just the beginning. With over half the season still ahead and their roster finally healthy, the Fever are now positioned to unlock their full potential. The kind of chemistry they showed in that second half is what separates good teams from champions. So here's the question every fan should be asking. If this is what the Fever look like after weathering controversy and finding themselves, how dangerous will they be when everything truly clicks? Heat isn't always bad. Sometimes it melts away weakness and forges something stronger.